Stay single. Two words that will make some people uncomfortable. Two words that go against almost everything society has ever told you about what a good life looks like. You were supposed to find someone. You were supposed to build a home with another person. You were supposed to complete yourself through love, through partnership, through the approval of someone who chose you. And yet here you are. Maybe single and wondering if something is wrong with you. Maybe single and secretly, quietly relieved. Maybe in a relationship that drains you, watching this title and feeling something you are not ready to name. Whoever you are, wherever you are, stay with me. Because what we are going to talk about today is not about hating love. It is not about cynicism or bitterness or giving up on people. It is about something far more important, far more foundational, far more rare. It is about what it means to know yourself so completely, to build yourself so deliberately, to live so fully that you stop needing someone else to make your life feel real. It is about the freedom, the power, and the profound peace that comes from being genuinely, unapologetically whole on your own. This is one of the most important conversations you will ever have with yourself. And if this kind of content speaks to you, if you are the kind of person who wants to think deeply, live intentionally, and stop outsourcing your happiness, please subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button and turn on the notification bell. Every week we go into the conversations that most people are too distracted or too afraid to have. This community is growing and I want you to be part of it. Now, let us begin. The lie you were told. From the time you were old enough to watch a film, listen to a song, or hear a fairy tale, you were being taught a single lesson. You are not enough on your own. The story always ends the same way. Two people find each other, the music swells, the credits roll, and the message is clear. This union is what life is for. Everything before it was just waiting. Everything after it is fulfillment. And then real life begins. And real life looks different. Real life looks like people rushing into relationships because being alone feels like failure. It looks like people staying in partnerships that hollow them out because leaving feels like giving up. It looks like people building their entire identity around another person and then watching everything collapse when that person leaves, changes, or simply turns out to be human. The philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote centuries ago, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." Think about that. Not the inability to find love, not the inability to build wealth or achieve greatness, the inability to sit quietly, alone, with yourself. Because we were never taught how. We were taught to fill the silence, to seek distraction, to find someone, anyone, to make the quiet less terrifying. And so we do. We find people, we build relationships, and sometimes those relationships are beautiful and genuine and life-giving. But sometimes, more often than we admit, they are escape routes. They are ways of never having to face the person we are most afraid of, ourselves. This video is an invitation to stop running, to sit with yourself, to discover that the silence you have been terrified of is not empty at all. It is full of everything you have been looking for. What solitude actually is. Let us make a distinction that most people never make. There is a difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a wound. It is the ache of feeling unseen, disconnected, unimportant. It is the hunger for connection that goes unfed. Loneliness is real, it is painful, and no one should romanticize it. But solitude is something else entirely. Solitude is a practice. It is the deliberate, chosen experience of being with yourself. Not because no one else is available, not as a consolation prize, but as a conscious act of self-respect. A choice to spend time with the one person who will be with you every single moment of your entire life. You. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote in his famous letters, "It is good to be solitary, for solitude is difficult. That something is difficult must be a reason the more for us to do it." difficult. He used that word deliberately, because true solitude, the kind that teaches you something, the kind that changes you, is not comfortable. It requires you to stop performing, to stop managing how you appear, to stop filling the air with noise and simply be. Most people never do this. They go their entire lives without ever truly sitting with themselves. They move from relationship to relationship, from conversation to conversation, from distraction to distraction, and they die without ever really meeting themselves. You are choosing differently. By staying single, not forever necessarily, not as a permanent vow, but as a practice, as a season, as a decision to know yourself before you give yourself, you are doing something most people are not brave enough to do. You are choosing the harder, truer path. The person you become when no one is watching. When you are in a relationship, especially a long one, something subtle and dangerous can happen. You begin to exist in relation to another person. Your preferences start to bend around theirs. Your habits, your routines, your way of moving through a day, all of it begins to accommodate, to adjust, to adapt. And some of that is beautiful. That is what love and partnership require. But some of it is erosion. You start to forget what you actually like, separate from what you both like. You start to lose track of the dreams you had before the relationship absorbed them. You start to think in terms of we so constantly that the I becomes a little blurry, a little dim, a little uncertain. And then, if the relationship ends, and not all of them do, but many of them do, you are left standing in the wreckage not just of a partnership, but of yourself, because you do not know who you are anymore without this other person as your reference point. This is one of the most important reasons to know yourself first. Not to become someone who cannot love, but to become someone who can love without disappearing. When you are single, genuinely, intentionally single, you are forced to answer questions that partnership often lets you avoid. What do I actually believe? Not what do we believe, not what does the person I'm trying to impress believe, but what do I believe? What kind of life do I actually want? What fills me with energy, and what drains me? What am I building toward, and why? What kind of person am I when things go wrong and no one is there to comfort me? These questions are not comfortable, but they are yours. And the answers you find, the real answers, not the ones you perform for someone else, those answers become the foundation of something unshakable, a self that belongs to you. When you are in a relationship, especially a long one, something subtle and dangerous can happen. You begin to exist in relation to another person. Your preferences start to bend around theirs. Your habits, your routines, your way of moving through a day, all of it begins to accommodate, to adjust, to adapt. And some of that is beautiful. That is what love and partnership require. But some of it is erosion. You start to forget what you actually like, separate from what you both like. You start to lose track of the dreams you had before the relationship absorbed them. You start to think in terms of we so constantly that the I becomes a little blurry, a little dim, a little uncertain. And then, if the relationship ends, and not all of them do, but many of them do, you are left standing in the wreckage not just of a partnership, but of yourself. Because you do not know who you are anymore without this other person as your reference point. This is one of the most important reasons to know yourself first. Not to become someone who cannot love, but to become someone who can love without disappearing. When you are single, genuinely, intentionally single, you are forced to answer questions that partnership often lets you avoid. What do I actually believe? Not what do we believe, not what does the person I am trying to impress believe, but what do I believe? What kind of life do I actually want? What fills me with energy and what drains me? What am I building toward and why? What kind of person am I when things go wrong and no one is there to comfort me? These questions are not comfortable, but they are yours. And the answers you find, the real answers, not the ones you perform for someone else. Those answers become the foundation of something unshakable, a self that belongs to you. The cost of choosing wrong. To talk about something that does not get said enough. The cost of being in the wrong relationship is not just unhappiness. It is not just wasted time, though it is that too. The cost is something deeper, something that takes years to undo. When you spend years with a person who does not see you, who diminishes you, who needs you to stay small in order to feel comfortable, you begin to believe you are small. When you spend years managing someone else's instability, someone else's anger, someone else's inability to grow, you begin to mistake anxiety for love. You begin to think that the feeling of walking on eggshells, of always waiting for the next explosion, of constantly earning your place in someone's life, you begin to think that feeling is just what relationships are. It is not. When you spend years pouring yourself into a person who is not capable of receiving what you are giving, you begin to doubt the value of what you have to offer. You begin to wonder if perhaps the problem is you. Perhaps you are too much, or not enough, or fundamentally unlovable in some way you cannot name. You are not. But the damage done by the wrong relationship, the quiet accumulating damage of years spent in the wrong place with the wrong person, that damage does not announce itself. It whispers. It settles into your posture, your voice, your ability to trust your own perceptions. And undoing it takes time and work and the kind of honest solitude we have been talking about. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. First, know what you want to become. Then make your choices accordingly." Staying single, choosing not to enter a relationship until you know yourself well enough to choose wisely, is not giving up on love. It is protecting the love you will eventually give. It is refusing to spend the currency of your heart before you know its value. Building a life that does not need rescuing. Here is a question worth sitting with. What would your life look like if you stopped waiting for someone to share it with and started building it for yourself? Not a life on hold, not a half-life, a placeholder, a rough draft waiting to become real once the right person arrives, but a full, rich, deliberate life that you are proud of right now, today, exactly as it is. A life with friendships deep enough that they sustain you, work that challenges you and means something, a home that reflects who you actually are, habits that make you stronger, healthier, clearer, interests and passions you have pursued not to impress someone, but because they genuinely light you up. That life is available to you, but you have to choose it. You have to stop treating your current life as the waiting room and start treating it as the destination. There is something powerful that happens when a person stops organizing their life around the hope of a future relationship. When they stop asking, "Will this make me more attractive?" and start asking, "Will this make me more alive?" When they stop measuring their choices by how they will look to a potential partner and start measuring them by how they feel in their own body, their own soul, their own quiet knowing. They start building something real. And here's what the research on happiness consistently shows, what the philosophers have said for centuries, what the wisest people in any tradition have discovered. The people who make the best partners are the people who needed a partner the least. Not because they are cold or closed, but because they are whole. They come to love as an addition to a full life, not as a rescue mission. They bring themselves to the relationship, not just their longing. And that changes everything. The freedom on the other side. Imagine waking up on a Saturday morning with no obligations to anyone but yourself. You decide in that moment what the day will hold. You might spend it in silence. You might chase something wild and unexpected. You might dive deep into a project that has been calling to you for months. You might call a friend and drive somewhere neither of you has been. You might do nothing at all, with full permission, without apology. There is no one to negotiate with, no moods to read, no needs to manage, no one to disappoint simply by being exactly who you are. That freedom is not small. Most people have never experienced it because they have moved from one relationship to the next without ever really landing in themselves. They have never had a sustained period of answering only to themselves, of building a life with no audience, of making decisions, small and large, based purely on their own inner compass. And what they discover when they finally do it, when they finally stop filling the space and let the space teach them something, is that the silence they were running from was not empty. It was full of themselves, full of desires they had buried under accommodation, full of opinions they had softened to keep the peace, full of a voice that had been waiting patiently to be heard. That voice is not always comfortable. Sometimes it says things you do not want to hear. It tells you that you have been settling, that you have been performing, that the life you have been living has not been fully yours. But it also tells you things that give you back to yourself. It tells you what you love, what you believe, what you are made for, who you want to become. And when you know those things, really know them, not as ideas but as lived experience, you become someone different, someone steadier, someone who walks into a room and does not need the room to confirm their worth. That person is the best version of you, and that person was never going to be found in someone else. They were always here, waiting for you to get quiet enough to listen. On love. The truth the cynics miss. I want to be honest with you about something. Everything we have talked about today is not an argument against love. Love is one of the most extraordinary human experiences there is. The right partnership, built between two people who are genuinely whole, who choose each other freely rather than desperately, who bring their full selves to the table and invite the other to do the same, that partnership is one of the most beautiful things a human life can hold. The Stoics believed in love. Marcus Aurelius wrote with tenderness about his wife Faustina. Seneca wrote to his wife Paulina with a devotion that crosses centuries. They were not people who had closed themselves to connection, but they understood something that most people entering relationships do not. You cannot truly love someone else until you have genuinely reckoned with yourself. Because the person who has not done that work, who has not sat in solitude and faced their fears and learned their patterns and built a life they own, that person does not actually love their partner. Not fully. They need their partner. They depend on their partner. They cling to their partner as proof that they are worthy of love. And that is a different thing. Need dressed up as love looks like love from the outside, but inside it is anxious, possessive, fragile, constantly testing. It is love with conditions. I love you as long as you never leave, never change, never stop confirming what I cannot confirm for myself. True love, the kind worth waiting for, worth building toward, worth being the kind of person who deserves it. That love is generous. It is free. It is two people standing complete and choosing each other anyway. That kind of love requires this work. It requires the season of solitude, the season of building yourself, the season of learning through practice and not just theory, that you are enough. Staying single is not the end of the love story. For many people, it is how the love story actually begins. What to do with the time. So what do you actually do with this? If you are going to embrace this season of singleness, not as something that happened to you, but as something you are choosing, what does that look like in practice? It starts with presence. Stop spending your energy grieving a relationship you lost or anticipating a relationship you have not found. Come back to the life that is actually in front of you. The ordinary, imperfect, completely unrepeatable life that is happening right now. What in your life right now deserves more of your attention? Your health, your craft, your friendships, your finances, your spiritual life, your creative work? Where have you been absent because you were elsewhere in your mind? Bring yourself back. Next, pursue something hard, something that asks everything of you. The Stoics believed that we discover ourselves not in ease but in effort. Find the thing that challenges you most, the skill you have been afraid to develop, the goal you have been circling without committing, the version of yourself you keep imagining but never quite becoming, and move toward it. Not for someone to admire, for yourself. Then build your inner life. Read the books that change you. Have the conversations that push you. Sit quietly enough, often enough, that the voice inside you gets used to speaking and you get used to hearing it. Journal if that is your way. Walk alone. Pray or meditate or simply breathe without agenda. Give yourself the time and the silence to become acquainted with yourself. And finally, love the people in your life fiercely. Your friends, your family, the community you belong to. One of the great gifts of being single is that you have the spaciousness to invest in these relationships without the complexity of a romantic partnership pulling your attention. Use that spaciousness well. Let this season of your life be full, not empty in waiting, full in becoming. The most important relationship you will ever have. I want to leave you with one final thought. Of all the relationships you will have in your lifetime, the partnerships, the friendships, the family bonds, the professional connections, there is one relationship that will outlast and underlie all of them. Your relationship with yourself. This is the relationship most people never invest in directly. They invest in it accidentally, as a side effect of other things. But rarely do they treat it as the primary, fundamental, most important relationship of their lives. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man surrounded by advisors and admirers and the constant demands of an empire, retreated every single day into his own inner world. He wrote to himself. He challenged himself. He held himself accountable in the privacy of his own thoughts. Not because he had no one else, but because he understood that the quality of everything in his outer life depended entirely on the quality of his inner life. What if you treated your relationship with yourself the way you would treat the most precious relationship in your life? What if you kept your promises to yourself with the same integrity you would keep promises to someone you loved? What if you spoke to yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend who was struggling? What if you invested in your growth, your health, your understanding, your peace with the same care and attention you have given to relationships that may have taken far more than they gave? That relationship, the one with yourself, is where everything starts. It is where trust begins, where courage lives, where the willingness to love well and live fully ultimately comes from. You cannot build that relationship inside someone else. You can only build it in the honest, private, sometimes uncomfortable, ultimately liberating experience of being alone with yourself. That is not a consolation. That is not a lesser thing. That is the foundation of everything. You have stayed with me through all of this, and I am grateful for that. Because these are not easy ideas to sit with. They push against things we were taught to want, things we were taught to fear, patterns that have been running in us for years. But you are here. You are asking the questions, and that matters more than you know. Whatever season you are in right now, whether you are newly single and raw with it, or contentedly alone and thriving, or somewhere in the complicated middle of all of this, I want you to hear this. You are not incomplete. You are not a person waiting to become whole. You are not a story waiting for its other half. You are not a rough draft in search of someone who will edit you into something worthwhile. You are already the whole thing. And the work, the beautiful, difficult, deeply worthy work, is learning to believe that, living from that, building a life that reflects that. Staying single in its deepest meaning is not about being without someone. It is about refusing to be without yourself. It is about choosing presence over performance, depth over distraction, the hard, true, luminous work of becoming someone you are proud to be, not for anyone else's sake, but for yours. That is the invitation, and today is as good a day as any to accept it. Before you go, if something in this video shifted something in you, if you found yourself pausing or breathing differently or thinking about your life in a new way, please subscribe to this channel. What we are building here is not just content. It is a community of people who refuse to live on the surface. People who are willing to ask the harder questions, sit with the uncomfortable answers, and do the work that most people avoid. Every week we go deeper into the ideas and conversations that genuinely matter. And I do not want you to miss a single one. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell, share this video with someone who needs to hear it today, and come back, because this conversation is just beginning. Take good care of yourself. You are worth it.